I'm Julie Bjelland, sensitivity expert, psychotherapist, and founder of the online sensitive empowerment community.
I'm Willow McIntosh, founder of Inluminance and leader of the High Sensory Intelligence movement. We hope you enjoy this episode.
And today's topic is how to avoid and heal from toxic relationships. And we are joined by the beautiful Willow McIntosh. Hello, Willow.
Hey, Julie. So pleased to be here. So excited to be chatting about this important topic today.
Right, and what a big topic this is. We were just talking before we started, some in the community, and I was saying that, this is such a huge topic that I really see this as the beginning of a conversation because we couldn't possibly cover everything that needs to be covered on this kind of a topic, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a huge topic for us as HSPs, and I'm so pleased we're getting to at least begin the conversation today and hopefully open up a wider conversation as a result.
Yes, absolutely. And I was saying too that I think just about every HSP I've ever known has been involved in some kind of toxic relationship. And just for the purposes of our discussion, I'm kind of thinking of these relationships as being family, friendships, work, and of course, romantic relationships. And that kind of covers a little bit of the umbrella of what we're going to be talking about. And something that I think is so interesting to think about too is, as HSPs, we do tend to be overgivers. And what's interesting about that is toxic people tend to be overtakers. So that kind of a dynamic can happen in family, friendship, romantic relationships, even work colleagues, right?
Yes, exactly right. I think that's it. Definitely the place to start with this is to recognize that we as HSPs, we are giving people, we can see the effect that we have. We're people, we love to interact, we love to support people, and yes, and we tend to attract, for whatever reason that may be, and I'm sure we're going to explore that, we tend to attract people that kind of just lock onto us and take our energy, become dependent on our energy, and the relationship then becomes toxic as a result.
Yeah, it ends up being a really unhealthy dynamic. I've been involved in that kind of a relationship myself, and I think that so many of us have experienced that. And also what's modeled in our childhood can impact how we view relationships in general, what we perceive is okay, what isn't. That comes up a lot for people, and I really want to encourage people to seek therapy if they feel like they had a very dysfunctional or abusive childhood, for example, or in past relationships, because you want to try to break some of those patterns and become aware of them. And just so everybody knows, I have a HSP practitioners directory on my website. And I also, before we go too much further, I want to address too, for anybody that might be experiencing abuse in your relationship right now, I really want to encourage you to reach out for support. There's a national domestic violence hotline that offers free confidential support, and they have a lot of resources on that website. You can talk to them 24 hours a day, and you can go to thehotline.org or call 1-800-799 SAFE, which is 7233. I know this is in the US, but you can actually look at the hotline.org on the website, and there is so much good stuff on that website about recognizing it. It's important if you are in a dangerous situation to create a safety plan. This is critical, so I just want to mention this for anybody that might be experiencing that, but we're going to focus more on toxic relationships for this discussion. Anything you want to add to that, Willow?
Just to say that from personal experience and also people that I've worked with, sometimes when we're in a toxic relationship that may have been going on for years and years and years, we can be so embedded and so used to it that we don't actually realize just how much it's affecting us and how toxic it actually is. So if you're in a position right now, whether it's in a family position with your spouse, with a friend, with anybody, and you're feeling unsafe, you're feeling unhappy, and you can't put your finger on why, just by reaching out and getting support, sometimes it can take you out of the situation just by talking to someone, and then suddenly you can see, okay, this is actually really unhealthy for me. So if you're getting any inkling, or you're in a situation where you're just feeling unsafe and unhappy, then please do take the step to get support.
Yeah, there are people who care so deeply about this. So many of the people that work in these fields have been through it themselves and feel, really want to give support to you. And we all deserve to be in safe situations. And I will be posting this in the show notes as well, so that you can easily click on it. And I want to talk a little bit, moving on to relationship stages, because this can be complicated for people to understand sometimes, and I think this might help a little bit. So the beginning of a relationship stage is we call it the honeymoon stage, and it can last up to 6 months, and it is literally like having your brain on drugs. And what I mean by that is, this happens to be a stage where, it just feels perfect. You can feel very high on life. It literally is creating chemicals in your brain that make you feel high. This is a real thing. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because the next stage is called the conflict stage. This is when things start going bad. And for a lot of HSPs, if we've been in, this beautiful honeymoon period with someone, and we've fallen in love, where things feel really great, and then suddenly conflict starts happening. It can be really confusing because most, bad relationships don't start out bad. A lot of times they start out good, and then moving into a conflict stage is when things start really falling apart. And this is the stage I really wanted to encourage people to seek therapy early. Individual therapy, couples therapy. Really being able to get through this stage and conflict stage will help you move into the deeper love stage that comes after that. So what we might be talking about in a lot of scenarios today are probably something you're experiencing in a conflict stage. What do you think, Willow?
Yes, absolutely right. And isn't it interesting how we go through these phases? And you described it beautifully there. Yes, that's certainly my experience, and I'm sure many listeners right now feel that too. And I think one of the pieces that I've really recognized that's helped me so much is to get support when we get into this conflict phase, but it's also to get the boundaries in place and as much of the structure as we can, even though we're in this super high chemical release phase when we're in our honeymoon period. It's actually recognizing that getting clear about the structure of the relationship, of how it's going to move forwards, is so important at the beginning. So it's understanding that, okay, these are the kind of instructions that I have for you about the way I work as a person, and vice versa, and just having as much open communication as possible to get these things into place as early as possible. These are my no's, these are my yeses, and just really trying to take the time to do that as early as possible.
Yes, absolutely. This is really the absolute first essential step, is doing our own internal work on ourselves. Because when we talk about red flags, I actually think it's a red flag to enter into a relationship when we ourselves are not healthy and balanced. This is how many unhealthy relationships begin, when we aren't in a strong place, and being able to define what your values are, what your, like you were saying, Willow, what your no's are, and to get to know, we have to get to know ourselves and what our needs are to even get our needs met by other people. And for a lot of HSPs, we're so focused externally on everyone else that we can sometimes enter into friendships, relationships, in a place where we are not even knowing who we are and what we need. I certainly did that in my, many years ago, before I did my personal work. And I think it's also helpful to think about, being able to be comfortable, to be yourself with someone, to feel good around them, feel accepted for who you are, and that they can be compromised, so that they are able to compromise and be understanding as well. These are things that you really want to feel in a relationship. And I know even for myself, and we're going to go into some recognizing red flags in a bit, but I even know when I look back on my own history, the toxic relationship that I was in, I entered that in a place where I myself was in a broken place. And therefore, when I'm in a broken place, I'm not even going to recognize as many of the red flags as I would if I'm in a strong, healthy place in life. What do you think, Willow?
Yes, 100%. Yes. So it is an immediate red flag. Sometimes, yes, if we can sense that we're not in a health, we're not in a strength, in a place of personal empowerment ourselves, we're feeling unsure, then when we're going into a relationship in that state, then yes, it's very difficult to try to maintain our own sense of self within that, especially as an HSP, and to make the right decisions and get these boundaries in place. And one of the other real red flags I think that's worth mentioning at this point is that feeling that we have where we just want to try to please as much as possible in order to feel safe and accepted. And actually, when we start doing that, we are setting ourselves up for a real pickle later down the line. In other words, if we are just giving and giving and giving and trying to be as nice as we can and saying yes to everything, because deep down we think, okay, the more I agree and the more I say yes to, the more I'm going to be liked. Therefore, the better the relationship's going to go, the safer I'm going to feel eventually. The trouble is what's happening in there is we're not giving clear instructions and not recognizing that we can't do that for the rest of the relationship. It's just not possible. We have to get these structures and boundaries and recognitions that we have key needs in the relationship as early as possible. And that's then going to create the structure for things to be manageable for us later down the line. I think it's when we give everything at the beginning, for whatever intention that may be, that's when it really starts to go wrong.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And being able to even like ourselves, because if we don't like ourselves, how are we expecting other people to like us? And I've said this many times that we will be honored and respected and loved at the same level that we love and respect and honor ourselves.
This material in an excerpt from a longer podcast or video. Follow link in description to learn more.